The quiet hum of the city outside was the only honest sound left in the apartment. Everything else, every whispered word, every shared laugh, every tangled sheet, was a meticulously crafted, beautiful lie. I was sitting on the edge of the bed, the silk of her robe still warm, slipping from my fingers. I remember the exact moment the air left the room, the second I knew it wasn't just a fling, not just a complicated woman, but a masterpiece of emotional architecture designed to hold me captive. It wasn't a sudden dramatic reveal, no dropped photograph, no incriminating text. It was a faint, almost invisible scent that lingered on my favorite jacket, a scent that was undeniably hers, yet somehow didn't belong to me. It was a whisper of a different cologne, a ghost of another man's embrace, woven into the fabric of my life, subtle enough to dismiss, yet potent enough to poison everything. That scent, faint and fleeting, was the first crack in the flawless, diamond-hard illusion she had built around us. I thought I was the hunter. I believed I was the one navigating the depths of a complex woman. I was wrong. I was the prey, seduced by the sheer magnetic force of her unavailability. She drew me in not with promises, but with a palpable electric energy that made every moment feel like a high-stakes gamble. The suspense wasn't in winning her. It was in the terrifying realization that I was already trapped, willingly, joyously, in a cage gilded with her charm. This wasn't love, it was a psychological addiction, and I was about to catalog the 7 hidden keys that locked me in, the signs that whispered not of a passionate past, but of a pattern of power and disposability. The weight of her past didn't come in confessions. It came in the atmosphere she created. It was like breathing high-altitude air, thin, exhilarating, and ultimately unsustainable. I should have seen it in the way she moved, with a casual, almost predatory grace that suggested a lifetime of knowing exactly how to command a room, how to hold a gaze a second too long, how to make the mundane feel charged with erotic possibility. She didn't seek attention. She received it, passively, as if it were a natural law of physics. But the true evidence, the psychological tell that unmade my perfect love story, began with the phantom scent and solidified in the subtle, devastating patterns of her behavior. The first thing you'll notice, the invisible scar she carries, is her emotional depth, vast and yet curiously shallow. When we first talked, her eyes were an ocean of old sorrow, a beautiful, mesmerizing pain she never fully explained. She would talk about her past relationships with a weary, knowing sigh, hinting at tragedies and betrayals so profound they made her fragile, unique. She spoke in hushed, poetic generalities. "I've loved too deeply, and it nearly destroyed me. I've learned that trust is a mirror that cracks easily." These weren't admissions. They were carefully selected seduction cues. They were designed to trigger the protector instinct, the savior complex, the ego that screams, "I am the man who will finally heal her." But the moment you tried to dive into that ocean to truly comfort her or understand the specifics, she would pull back, a practiced, swift maneuver. I remember one rainy evening, I pressed her gently about a specific ex-lover she'd mentioned in passing. Her face didn't panic, it didn't even stiffen. It simply closed like a vault door sliding shut. Her tone became flat, dismissive, almost annoyed. "It's history, darling. It doesn't matter. Let's talk about us." The shift was jarring. It wasn't vulnerability. It was a performance of vulnerability. She gave you the idea of depth, the tantalizing lure of a broken bird only you could fix, but the core remained untouched, protected by a steel wall. I realized this was because she had repeated this script so many times that the genuine emotion had been leached out, leaving only the polished, perfected monologue designed to make the man listening feel singularly important. She knew that a man falls not for what she shows, but for the mystery she hints at, the promise of the real woman beneath the armor. Her emotional reservoir was endless, because she never truly gave any of it away. She was a brilliant actress playing the same tragic role for a constantly rotating audience of one. The second sign, a chilling tell, was the uncanny precision of her compliments. She didn't just say, "You're handsome." She said, Your focus, that laser intensity when you talk about your work, it's the most compelling thing I've ever seen. Most men just drift, but you're built for purpose. She wasn't praising my appearance. She was validating the secret fragile ego I rarely showed anyone. She complimented the unseen man, the man I desperately wished others saw. How could she know that? How could she pinpoint the exact word, purpose, that resonated with my deepest fear of being aimless? Every piece of flattery was a surgical strike, tailored specifically to the deepest insecurity or the most unacknowledged ambition I possessed. It was unsettlingly specific. It was the way she'd casually mention my old world chivalry after I'd held a door, or my unflinching confidence right after I'd admitted a profound doubt. She had a PhD in male psychology, learning the hidden vulnerabilities of dozens of men who had opened up to her in the intimate glow of a brief, intense affair. The compliment wasn't a gift, it was a mirror held up to my own perfect reflection, a reflection she carefully edited and curated. I felt seen, truly seen, but now I know it wasn't intuition. It was data collection. She had listened to enough life stories, enough late-night confessions from men striving to impress her, to have a master blueprint of the male psyche, and she simply dropped the perfect personalized key into my lock. It made me feel like the one man who finally got her, and more frighteningly, the one man she truly got. Her affirmations weren't about me. They were about her capacity to observe and weaponize my deepest needs. She didn't fall for me, she successfully engineered my fall for her. This led to the third, more insidious pattern, the effortless, almost negligent control over the relationship's pace. There was no neediness, no chasing. The calendar, the calls, the intensity, it was all dictated by a subtle, almost invisible rhythm only she conducted. We would have a weekend of blinding, relentless closeness, a sensory overload of affection and physical presence, and then she could disappear for 2 days, and when she resurfaced, her explanation would be so breezy, so utterly reasonable, an unexpected work trip, a family crisis she handled alone, that you'd feel irrational for even questioning it. She never apologized for the distance. She just resumed the intensity, plunging us back into the deep end without acknowledging the time we spent treading water. This wasn't about being busy. It was about power maintenance. She didn't need to check in because she was never worried about losing me. She knew with chilling certainty that her silence would only amplify my desire. The brief separation allowed me to romanticize the memory of her, to feel the sharp edge of her absence, and to return to her feeling more desperate and compliant than before. She was fluent in the language of scarcity, an expert at using distance as a powerful form of emotional leverage. Her self-sufficiency was dazzling, but it was also a wall, a constant quiet reminder that she didn't need me, she merely chose me, a choice that could be revoked without warning. She was teaching me to be grateful for the crumbs of her time, and I was learning the lesson eagerly. The fourth sign was visible in the small, forgotten objects in her apartment, the curated and sterile environment. Her space was immaculate, stylish, yet strangely devoid of true history or clutter. The books were perfectly aligned, the art was sophisticated, but generic enough to avoid argument, and the clothing in her closet was expensive but appeared new, unworn by the emotional friction of long cohabitation. There were no deeply personal photographs, no old trinkets from college, no messy drawers, only art, books, and decor that felt less like a home and more like a high-end hotel suite ready for the next temporary guest. This wasn't just neatness, it was strategic emptiness. I started to notice the items that weren't there. No large, comfortable sweatshirts a man might accidentally leave behind. No oversized coffee mugs from an old relationship. No personalized detritus that could speak of a deeply embedded life with another person. Her environment was constantly ready for a quick, efficient reset. The closet contained only her clothes, the bathroom only her toiletries. It wasn't that she didn't have a past, it was that she was ruthlessly effective at erasing it, keeping the canvas blank for the next man to project his dreams upon, ensuring that no ghost of a former lover would ever speak to me from her coffee table. It was a museum dedicated only to the present moment, designed to convince the current admirer that he was the beginning, the true inauguration of her emotional life. The cleanliness was a warning. She was an expert in deconstruction and swift evacuation. Then came the fifth sign, a whisper in the night. The expert level emotional compartmentalization. She could transition from intense, intimate passion to cool, pragmatic discussion with the speed of a snapping finger. One moment we were sharing the kind of profound, soulful connection people spend a lifetime searching for, her hand stroking my hair, her voice thick with promises only the dark hears, and the next, she was checking her phone to discuss a business deal with a client overseas, her eyes utterly detached, the warmth extinguished. Her voice would shift from the soft, low register of a lover to the sharp, decisive tone of a CEO. This wasn't a flaw, it was a skill. She could turn the intimacy on and off at will, a psychological shield refined through repetition. It told me that the profound emotional connection I was experiencing was not a unique event, but a well-rehearsed, repeatable performance. Her heart wasn't fully engaged, her presence was. She was physically here, but psychologically she was untouchable, operating behind a soundproof glass wall. She was not merging her life with mine. She was granting me temporary, high-quality access to one of her carefully controlled emotional channels, a privilege that could be revoked the moment it ceased to entertain her. This detachment was terrifying. It meant she never risked true emotional injury. She merely unplugged and walked away intact, leaving me shivering in the echo of our manufactured closeness. The sixth and most devastating revelation was the unnerving lack of jealousy or territoriality. She never questioned where I went, who I saw, or what I was doing. When I mentioned a beautiful colleague or an ex-girlfriend, she reacted not with a flicker of concern, but with genuine, almost philosophical detachment, often offering advice that was eerily insightful. "She sounds like she had fire," she'd say, "but fire is too easily contained." It was a casual dismissal that somehow diminished both the woman I mentioned and me for needing to mention her. This wasn't a sign of secure love, it was a sign of utter indifference to possession. She didn't view me as hers to lose, but as a temporary, enjoyable fixture. True jealousy springs from fear of loss. Her lack of it signaled a chilling confidence. She knew her power was magnetic enough that she didn't need to guard me, and if I did stray, she had the immediate emotional resources and the practiced emotional recovery to simply move on to the next. Her freedom was absolute, and it was rooted in the knowledge that she could, and likely would, replace me without a second thought. This indifference was the ultimate psychological torture. It made me want to tie myself to her, to earn a reaction, to force a spark of ownership, only to realize that her greatest strength was the complete absence of that need. She was the one who was always ready to walk away, making me the one who constantly pleaded, silently, just by existing in her orbit, for her to stay. And finally, the seventh sign, the one that makes you question your own sanity, her unblinking confidence in male nature. She had a fundamental, unshakable cynicism about what men ultimately want. She didn't need to ask my desires, she predicted them. She knew the exact moment a man wants praise, the precise second he craves control, and the inevitable return to the comfort of the familiar. When I tried to tell her I loved her for her mind, for her ambition, she would look at me with a soft, knowing smile, the kind of look that suggests she appreciates the lie, but knows the truth better than I do. Her every move, from the way she dressed to the subtle vulnerability she allowed herself in rare moments, seemed calibrated to what she understood was the universal language of male desire. She never believed my commitment to her was unique. She believed it was a predictable, biological response to her specific, perfected stimuli. She operated under the assumption that men are driven by simple, interchangeable needs, and she had perfected the algorithm to satisfy them temporarily. This knowledge, honed over time with many different men, became her most powerful weapon. She was never surprised by my behavior because she had seen the same script played out dozens of times before. She didn't see me, the individual. She saw the pattern, and she knew exactly which moves to make because the game, for her, was never about winning my heart. It was always and only about maintaining the illusion of her own unconquerable power. She was not searching for love. She was confirming her dominance over the mechanisms of love. The hum of the city fades and the silk robe is cold now. I understand everything. I wasn't her great love. I was a data point, an enjoyable chapter, a successful conquest in her long, secret history of power plays. The silence now is heavy with the weight of all the untold stories, all the men who came before me, and all the men who will inevitably come after. She hasn't simply slept with a lot of men. She has mastered the art of making a man believe he is the first to see her, the last to leave her, and the only one to truly love her. And the truth? The devastating, chilling truth I carry from this apartment is that even now, knowing the entire structure is a beautiful, empty stage set for a temporary performance, I can still hear the applause. I can still feel the heat of the spotlight she shone on me. The lie was exquisitely crafted, and though I am free of the deception, the addiction to the feeling she created remains. I know it was a lie, but God help me, it was the most compelling lie I've ever been a part of. You don't escape a woman like this. You just wait for her to open the door and let you go. The real terror is that you'll spend the rest of your life hoping she might just knock again, one last time, to remind you of the beautiful disaster you once were.